Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. Today we're going to be talking about the cattle knife. This is a robust three-bladed knife that ranchers used to use. We're going to talk about the description of them, what exactly makes this a cattle knife, the history of them, and all the variations of the cattle knife. And you can see I've got all my ducks lined up in a row. So this is going to be a good video, and I hope that you'll join me in the video and check out what makes a cattle knife a cattle knife.
Michael's boots. I'm not sure, but I will clean it anyway.
All right, welcome back to the Fortified Castle. Hi, all my viewers. Bonjour, privet, guten tag, hola, ciao, and konnichiwa. And also, good day, mate. So I had an Australian viewer mention I should say good day. That's with a G, by the way. G-day. Good day, mate. So, hi to my Australian viewers. I'm glad to have you. I hope you guys dropped in and saw the little show that we did, the live feed with Patty Potato Peelers. Pretty interesting topics we talked about. People had some really good questions, and there was a surprise giveaway. So Timothy Sabella got him a pretty nice knife there, and in the UK, Patty handled the giveaway there. Was a Victorinox. And so yeah, let's talk about cattle knives. First off, what makes this a cattle knife? Well, cattle knives were heavy-duty, three-bladed knives between 3 5/8 and 3 3/4 inches. And we're talking about vintage cattle knives, okay? According to NKCA guidelines, Knife Collectors Association. And that kind of continues on today, but today, of course, you can find cattle knives in all kinds of configurations. So we're talking about vintage knives and what makes a cattle knife a cattle knife. Some of these knives, one of the things that you can always tell about whether a knife was a successful pattern or not is they will appear in different sizes. And so originally these were 3 5/8 to 3 3/4, but eventually they got smaller. And these cattle knives here go down in size to 3/4 of an inch. And then they could be as large as 4 1/4, some of them. I've never seen one that big before, but Levin says, you know, that's what they went up to. Cattle knives came about around the 1870s. I've never verified that because I've never had a really old cattle knife before. But I imagine that's pretty close to the truth. 90% of all cattle knives are equal ends like this. And you can see that in the different variations here. But there were some made in other configurations, like the Eureka pattern, which is, Eureka pattern was like a canoe, but it had a swell in the center here. And the balloon pattern, jumbo cattle knives were sleeve board type patterns. You had the canoe, of course, right like this, in the surveyor pattern. Most cattle knives had a spear blade in them, like this one right here. You can see the spear blade. But other companies, like Case, preferred the clip blade and put the clip blade in them. What's really funny is if you look at most of these, this is another spear blade. It's a Robeson, but almost every other knife here has a clip blade on it. So that's kind of funny that almost all of my examples are the style blade that they weren't produced the most of. There's also a variation of this. Let me see. I don't think I have one. Probably the easiest thing to do here is show you the Levin's. And so this is Levin's, and the cattle knife usually had a spear blade. You can see most of these have spear blades on them. And they had a, the secondary blade was usually a spay blade. And then the third blade was any combination of a leather punch, you can see that there, or a sheep's foot blade, let's see, or a pen blade. And so there were different configurations. Here's some over here. As you can see, some were four-bladed. That's pretty interesting. I've never, well, actually I have a four-bladed one. And so, that's the different configurations that you see on them. Mostly they were bone and celluloid. Really fancy ones sometimes had pearl on them. Very, very rare to find one like that. And then past 1930, they started using wood on them. But after the 60s, really rare to find that. So let's just look at one of these real quick. This is an E.C. Simmons, dates to 1939. It's a keen cutter before they were sold out. You have your clip blade, spay blade right there. And you have, or spay blade and sheep's foot blade. Spay blade, sheep's foot blade right there. That's kind of the normal configuration for them. This one has a leather punch, I believe, right there. And let's see, this is an old Imperial. It has a leather punch also. This is an LF&C. It has a leather punch also and a spay blade. Usually the spay blade defined these things, but sometimes they had leather, they just had a sheep's foot and a pen blade on them. So that one has a spay, but this spay blade, this is a Schrade Walden, and it has a sheep foot blade. This one's a little smaller. What is the, that's 3 1/4 inches. So this is one of the small ones. This is about as small as I got right here. And you can see this Robeson. This dates to the 60s right here. I don't have a lot of different configurations. When I got these canoes, I thought they were just four-bladed canoes. But I've realized, actually just now doing the research, that these are canoe cattle knives. And so obviously what makes them the cattle knife is the spay blade on them. So you see the spay and the sheep's foot blade. And then this is a four-bladed version, which has a pen blade on the back of it. So if you have a canoe, if you had different blades than a spay blade or the ones I've listed, I think the canoe would just be a four-bladed canoe. This is a Case 44, and this model came out sometime after 1915. Case always used a clip blade on their cattle knife. This is pretty cool. Let me see if I can. Nice little gold scroll work here. I don't see, like, I don't know, it doesn't seem to be focusing to me. But it has the, you can see right there, the 45.5. The half stands for this blade right here, which instead of a punch or spay blade, it's a pen blade. And so this is a 3-bladed cattle knife, but it has a pin blade on it. That's kind of unusual. Although I think I got another one here. This is another canoe one. It has the spay blade. So anytime you see that spay blade, it's going to denote a cattle knife or a stockman. And then you see this one has a pin blade. So this is actually a canoe cattle knife right there. Here's a big old pound. This is 3 3/4. Thing's huge. Clip blade once again. And you have your sheepswood blade. And a pin blade. So they used to mix these blades up quite a bit. So in World War I, Camillus provided the Army Signal Corps with cattle knives, and also E.C. Simmons. E.C. Simmons also provided them. And then in World War II, Camillus provided the Army Air Corps with cattle knives, and they called those utility knives. The Army Air Corps called them utility knives. So cattle knives, big robust knives, 3 blades, usually a spay blade, but not always. You see a couple examples here who had pin blades on them. If they're equal in, if they're large and robust like these knives are, and they have a sheepswood blade with the pin blade, it would still considered a cattle knife. And that's about it for the cattle knife. I hope you guys... Oh, I wanted to show you one more. So this knife has the same configuration, clip blade. It does have a spay blade on it. And it does have a sheepswood blade. But these are not considered cattle knives. This is not a pattern that was sold as a cattle knife in vintage years. But you do find this knife, this style knife, which we call a sow belly, but you do find these as premium stockmans, sold as premium stockmans with a big old hump on the end here. They weren't called sow bellies. That's what collectors call them now. So in this configuration, even though this is a big knife, 3 3/4 inches, it's a serpentine design, and it would be considered a stockman sow belly. So, all right, I hope you found that interesting. I hope you have a fantastic week. Thanks so much for dropping in and checking out the video.